She just.
There you go. All right, ready to go. Call the meeting to order. Regular scheduled USD 379 school board meeting. First thing we need is approval of agenda.
To approve the agenda as presented.
Motion. Second. A second. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Recognition of guests. Appreciate everybody here in the crowd, being a part of it, for the witness, the same as those watching on the video. Do you have anybody else? Recognition of guests we're aware of? Guess the school year just started. Future citizens open board, unless you have anybody there. Communications received. Voting's laying in front of us was the conference. KSB November 15th through 17th. As far as the schedule, and let August know on that, how that works.
So if you want to attend, let August know. I think we have everything booked ahead of time, but we can get out of it until a certain date. So if you'd like to attend, just let her know. She'll take care of getting you registered. There you go. So,
Good. Questions on that? Well, we'll go on to the presentations.
They're just finishing up open house, so she was gonna.
so they have open house going on. So
Okay.
she's probably still tied up down there and she was gonna take the lead on this. So if you have any other questions or maybe on my super report, she could jump in and just fill you in if that'd be okay.
Yes, that'll be all right.
Or
That's all. Consent agenda items, any questions on there? Well. The motion like that 1.3 million, which that was the bond payment,
yeah, we make a bond payment. It's due 20 days ahead of time. So
is that on the donations, I have a couple of the donation things here, just ask, is that what improvements are did we do with the complex up there?
yeah, so we had an anonymous donor that made a significant donation and they were doing a lot of the work themselves and contracting a little bit out. And they got too busy last year to finish. And so they wanted to come back this year. And so they came back and basically behind the bleachers, they paved underneath the hole behind of the bleachers and then connected the sidewalk from the stairs over and put a pad there for the ticket booth that was up front. Moved it over there onto that pad. And then from underneath, they concreted over to the restroom concession building, so you can go out the two deals behind. And it's all paved and lighted under there to go over to the restroom concession building. And then on the north side at the entrance, they poured a little bit bigger pad because our construction tech class needed a project last spring. And so they built a larger ticket booth that goes there and they moved that up there and put that on there. So that was kind of the highlight of it, and finished rocking around while they were there and had the equipment. I did ask them, it'd been on our list for a long time, where the drain pipe comes out to the south. They put riprap around it for us while they were there. So it was a good expense that we didn't have to take on. So.
Any other questions on donations?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
If it's possible, could we move the items that involve the volleyball system project, including donations that are specific to that project? Could we move those to the discussion and business items?
I think so. What would they need to do, Dusty? Just vote?
You want.
I'm trying to think whether to pull all of yeah, you could just, we typically would just pull the agenda item, approve donations off of there, but you probably could even just ask to pull just what she's done, basically ask to pull the volleyball, it'd be the sponsorship advertising volleyball system project, or the ones that you're talking about
Yes.
pulling off of there and move into discussion items.
And I also,
Can they move it to specific, the advertising and naming agenda item?
Yeah,
and I have another question about that too. On that volleyball net system chart we received, 2 of those donors are listed on the donation list and 2 are not. I
Probably
could,
haven't received the actual check yet,
okay,
so it's,
okay,
the ones that are on here, there's actually like money sitting, waiting to go to the bank.
okay,
So we get them and we hold them and put them on here, and as soon as you guys say yes, then we get.
okay, thank you. That's just something I didn't know.
Do you want to make that motion?
and on the consent agenda, it doesn't even have to be a motion, because if anybody wants something off of the consent agenda,
We just pull
it
it.
comes off.
Okay,
Good. So you want to pull those items, dealing with the volleyball stuff, and move those to discussion items in H.
NH, yeah, put them in H.
So it's everything related to advertising for athletic events? And sponsorship advertising, or is it just the volleyball system?
Just the volleyball.
projects?
this,
Just one.
Okay.
The building usage for, which was looked at, it's a little bit different for the way they did that, so that's gonna change. I just asked that, Brett to keep on there, if there's any charges that we charge him, but to keep adding it on there, it's in a different format. Anything else? Since, all right, with the changes that we made, is that, I move to approve the consent agenda items. Second. Second, all those in favor? Carry 7-0. Is the board report? So first, anything from the board? Like mention?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the building staff who've sent out communication about back to school. You know, for my own kids, I've gotten quite a bit of email and things on Instagram and on Facebook, and I appreciate that we get it in multiple medias, so we can hopefully get those messages out. Thanks to the group that worked on recruitment and hiring so that we can be nearly fully staffed going into the school year. You know, that took a lot of work and scrambling and reaching out to people personally. I appreciate the work that was done on that. And thanks to the central office here for all of the work done on the budget. You know, it takes a lot of time and effort to pull those numbers.
I'd like to, give a shout out basically to our band directors and the assistants, the staff that helped out with the summer band camp. Anyway, I thought it was a well done project. That part, I heard a lot of good positive community feedback on the area. They said they were hearing music. They were thinking, where was it coming from? So anyway, that was good. They were playing real well. Also a sincere thank you to our district staff and the Clay County Coalition for hosting our August 7th kickoff event. It for our district and then plus for our community. And then also, I really appreciate everyone who's assisted in our district summer programs. No matter what job you served in, it was a true blessing to get us through and that from the bus drivers to kitchen help, basically to, of course, office personnel, it is everybody done with. Thank you.
Anything else? All right. We'll move on. Brett?
Yeah, and with enrollment, I'll hit on that during the budget presentation a little bit too, but, I did this afternoon, I waited till as late as I could this afternoon to put in the little enrollment chart in there for you. And again, it's still preliminary, we're still a few days away from kids showing up to our door, so this will change. Not by a lot, but it will change some, and, unfortunately, after 5 years of steady or growing enrollment, we're down significantly this year. Right now, it's it's looking to be around 40 students down over last year. And so that's all in kindergarten. It's between 37 and 40, depending on who comes, but looks like we stayed pretty steady in all of our other grades. It was just our incoming kindergarten versus our outgoing seniors last year. And so I'll talk a little bit more about what that means, or could mean in the future in our, during the budget piece. Some updates on where our staff is and regarding some summer project work that they did, and nothing too significant this summer. A lot of just, cosmetic and keep up things. And then something super exciting is we were awarded a $50,000 grant from the Patterson Foundation, and it's called the Rural District Educator Development Grant. And so that is monies that are purposed for rural communities, rural school districts to recruit future teachers. And so we're going to dig into that work and probably tie that into our existing committee with recruitment and retention on how we can strategically utilize those funds in the future to maybe possibly develop a good grow your own program to where we can recruit teachers in those high need areas to come back. So more to come on that, but that's very exciting, and we're very thankful for the Patterson Foundation for that work.
One quick I find like on the projects and the capital outlay ones is is those usually get done in the summer, or
So it's
a
what
lot of projects that I didn't see them on?
So is what we normally do is the summer project list is anything that's under that threshold of what we would normally put into a capital outlay budget. And so our buildings develop an ongoing list of those smaller things that need to be done, things that can be captured within Craig's regular maintenance budget. And so we take needs into what needs to be done in our buildings. And then if it's not, usually kind of 3,000 is our mark. If it's a project that's going to be 3,000 or more, we'll earmark that for capital outlay. If it's under, we see what's left in Craig's budget at the end of the year and see which one of those projects we can get done within his regular maintenance budget, if that makes sense. And the goal is always to get them as much done as in summer as we can, but no, we don't always get them all done. And then it just continues to carry into his list and he'll do what he can.
I'm talking more about like the auditorium and.
Oh,
the
the capital
seclusion
outlay
room
budgets,
and-
yeah.
The seclusion room at Wakefield and like the timeline for some.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so a lot of that is dependent upon how long the projects take and how intrusive it would be to the learning environment. So like the auditorium one, for example, it's very unlikely that we would be able to find time during a regular school year to accomplish that. So on those larger projects, late winter, early spring, we'll start developing an RFP process and how we're going to carry that out. And then we'll send the RFP out. You guys would obviously approve anything, and then that work would be done in June.
I think it's important to also add that the money that comes in capital outlay that we're budgeting right now, the big payment comes in January. So we don't actually have that full capital outlay budget yet.
So, and then we'll like to think, like, for example, the grounds truck that's in the plan, that's something that's not gonna intrude upon a learning environment. And so those things that we can accomplish that you guys approved, whatever, in April, whenever that was, we'll start working our way through that list throughout the year and look at it from a cash flow standpoint, like Andrea said, and also what can we do? You know, like a seclusion room, that's gonna be probably fairly difficult to accomplish during a school year. Now, once we get a little bit closer, some of those things you can look and say, do we have enough time over our Christmas break? Or could we move some kids around for a little while the project got done? But we'll keep you up to date on as we get freed up.
Did we do anything with that bathroom that was so bad at the high school supposedly?
It's on the list. You guys have.
But it's, nothing's been done with it now.
The only other question I have, we talked about this, is just where we're at, is that it's on the, your report, is this change in the squirrel bus pickup. You know, I had two more people reach out to me today on that. Is that set in stone? That's how we have to do? Is there, if anybody's aware, we're not gonna pick up kids at the actual preschool, at the pre-K kids at their childcare like we've done in the past. We're just gonna use the bus stops. And I've had a childcare provider and two parents reach out to me and visit with Brett about it. It's in the notes. Is that I think they sent an email on June 28th, I believe, is when the email was sent out. And, you know, if you read the email, I get a little bit what they're saying. They're saying, you know, your child would be picked up this time, but it doesn't say anything in there about us actually changing anything. And so I think it caused some confusion. All of a sudden they find out we're not stopping and doing that. And obviously it's put a few people in the mind, you know, to realize that we're not going to pick them up with child care. I mean, is that how it has to be? Is there any way around that?
Well, so I have Mr. McCoy here who can help chime in, but the background is obviously they were down 3 or 4 drivers last year, the whole year. And so they had to combine routes. They're still going into this year down drivers and they've had to combine several routes. And so and Mike jump in, but I'm paraphrasing, but the route that we used to do some door-to-door service. So we would pick up some kids at daycare door to door. So it was 8-10 stops throughout town, door to door. And they had to utilize that bus and driver to pick up another route where we were short.
Right, so in the past, it was basically for pre-K door-to-door in-town service. So with the number of drivers we have and vehicles, we needed to bring it in line with the policy of everybody else. Pre-K was treated it was just kind of because it has been situation treated different. Where they were in town, allowed door-to-door pickup, and that included daycare centers, houses, everything. So we were utilizing multiple vehicles, multiple drivers to try to pick up the pre-K students. So the changes that we made just brought pre-K into line with our standards for every other bus route is what it was. So if they have an IEP or, you know, not at risk, but if they have an IEP transportation on their IEP, it is door-to-door still, which is the same as it was in years past. But if they're just leaving their house and expecting to be picked up, they come into line with the 2.5 mile rule where they can go get on the squirrel bus and be transported to the schools. So that was the major change. So if we were to revert back with the staffing that we have, we would probably have to have a discussion on what other routes we could eliminate. At this point, we've eliminated pretty much everything we can. I mean, in the past 3 years, I think we're down 5 routes that have been combined. We're kind of out of combining without major ride times. So to follow state regulations and statutes, it would either be the pre-K route that is not in line with funding in the 2.5 mile rule or the in-town bus route, which is in the same boat, not in line with the 2.5. They're basically free routes. We weren't being paid for them. We aren't obligated to staff them. If there is a route that has to be canceled, it has to be one of those.
Well, I get that, okay, I really do, but you have put some of these people in a bond. Just because now all of a sudden they have other kids, their kids gotta go to a bus stop, they got other kids at the child care center. What do they do with them while they get those kids to the bus stop? And it's a cut-in service, I mean, I don't mean, correct, I mean, we've been providing it, but it's a cut-in service. And it's got these people in a bond, and,
Yeah, we haven't always provided that,
but we have recently,
maybe recently, but,
I just.
and Mike is.
I just think the
we didn't
messaging-
provide it with Mike is weird.
I just think the messaging part, I wish we'd give a bigger heads up in the future, if we can't change it, like,
Gave 8 weeks.
what's that,
We
now?
gave 8 weeks.
Six, when
It's
this,
back to June. This is August,
June 28th.
June 28th.
The way, some of them, the way the email was worded, Jeff, they didn't get it, that part had changed. The email said that their student was eligible for the squirrel, PK, pre-K was where it was, but it didn't mention in there that there was a change from the previous year in the email. So that's what's caused the confusion here in the last 7 days. And so I guess all I'm saying is that in my, to be good surgeon and let people know, we know we got bus driver problems in the past, and this is something we think may happen. And I visited Brett with this, is be good to put something out really early and say, hey, this is a possibility. The situation we're in back in March, to say this is a possibility that could happen. Just a little bit better communication to give them a little bit of a heads up. That's all I'm saying on
And
that.
I agree, but I mean, we did do our best to communicate the changes. I think Matt's staff at the time tried to communicate to the people that they could. We sent out the emails. We also called a lot of the parents when we had their information. We didn't have full enrollment. Preschool is a very fluid class. It's very difficult to keep up because they can enroll on their birthdays. So the other classes, you know, when they move in or whatever, so you get an influx in some classes, but pre-K is a challenge beyond challenges because of the birthday rule. You know, they hit their birthday, they start coming to school. So it's a very fluid route, changing a lot. So we have a hard time keeping up in general with it to start off with. But we did, like I said, we tried to call, we emailed the emails that we had available. We tried to give them sufficient time. And I understand absolutely where you're coming from as far as the inconvenience for the daycares or those people, but everybody has those challenges.
The daycare has more kids there. That's all I'm saying.
Right, right,
Besides their own.
right,
So
absolutely.
it has their own specific channel.
Yeah.
I'd like for it to be that. The other thing I would like to do is that when we cut services, it's gonna happen. I mean, we just talked about enrollment. Things are gonna happen like that. I just like for the board to be informed when we're gonna do that. Because that's who gets contacted. And it was kind of embarrassing when I had to say, I don't know. I hadn't heard anything of that. You see what I'm saying? Didn't know. I got to check it out. Just like our chart, I referred to Brett to visit with them, but I'd like to have been able just to have initial. To be able to say, well, this is what's going on, you know, and so the communication part of it is the biggest thing. Because like I say, there's gonna be other cuts in services, the way it looks, the way things are going, that's coming. And so, it's disappointing, but I get it. We've had trouble hiring bus drivers and hopefully we can eventually find something to help that out. So, but I'd sure like to avoid the confusion in the future with bigger notices and letting the board know if at all possible.
I think it'd be good just to clarify that 2.5 mile rule is that legally we are not obligated as a school district to provide any transportation to anyone within 2.5 miles. So I appreciate that we're able to make that happen with the school route. Do they get the letters like the country route gets? Does each parent get that?
So
Okay.
the squirrel bus is posted on the website with times. The country kids get the emails.
The individual letters. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, we don't do the individual letters anymore. It's just an email. It's, yeah, we're automated. We're high tech.
Less supposed
No more stuff in envelopes and clicking stamps for 2 days.
Okay. Is that, anything else for Brett? Okay, Anita's not here tonight. You might have any questions on, did you have a question?
I'm sorry.
Did you have any questions for Brett?
No, I mean, the only thing I have basically, it just pertains to the budget. That's it.
Okay, we'll do that later. Okay, is that, Anita's not here tonight. She put her report in there. So we'll pass that, Jacqueline.
Any questions? One thing I want to share that it kind of goes in line with what Steph and Mr. Nelson will present on, but 6 of our 10 new teachers are from here. Coming back home. I think that's pretty awesome. So that has, I need to go back over the last 5 years and calculate that percentage because it's pretty significant and that's pretty awesome. So.
You have questions from Kathy? If you don't mind, while we're at it here, we can talk about putting in with Brett, just go ahead and let me step and visit about the retention and that. Is that okay with everybody to do that here? Go right ahead.
Okay, I apologize, guys, for being late. We were wrapping up, meet the teacher. Can I grab one? The buildings are lively tonight with Meet the Teacher, which is super fun. So I'm just talking a little bit about our retention and recruitment team. So representation wise, we have a variety of staff across our whole district, certified, classified, our bus barn, maintenance, secretarial, board of ed rep. We're still looking for a paraprofessional and custodial. We've had some of those kind of in and out, and so we're looking for somebody to fill those, but it's been really nice to just get together and hear the perspectives of a ton of people across the district and kind of the variety of what they represent. So one of the first things that we thought was important was setting norms as a team, just so we could stand by them, make sure that we were meeting the agreement that we all thought was important, as well as outcomes. So those are listed down at the bottom of the first side. Just wanted to kind of encourage that honest and open communication as a team. I think when you get a variety of people together from differing roles, it's important to really honor everyone's voices. And so we hold space for that when we meet together. And then really encouraging thinking outside of the box, that no idea is a bad idea. We just have to come up and talk about it as a table, see if it's reasonable and see if it's innovative to solve our problem. So our outcomes, I do want to touch on those. The 2 there at the bottom, we will investigate sustainability to specifically look at retention for certified and classified staff within USD 379. And then we will look at the recruitment piece of making USD 379 more attractive to new graduates, young professionals, and new employees. So that was kind of a big piece, as we do talk a lot about the recruitment piece is what our team talked about. You know, we're so big into recruiting new people, but what's really important is retaining the current people we have too and giving good, solid effort to that. Because we've got great people in our community and great teachers and paras and bus drivers. We want to make sure we're taking care of them, celebrating them in a good way. So then if you flip over, we met 6 times last year. I think we started October. Does that sound right, Brett? And so we tried to meet monthly, but we were kind of held up a little bit by the EPIC survey results, getting those back. And so I think you guys investigated those maybe late May, but we have a certified and a classified. And so we actually spent time, 2 separate meetings, kind of breaking down each of them and looking for commonalities and themes and talking about what we saw throughout both surveys as kind of the big picture items that overlapped for both. So we're going to continue that throughout this school year and look at drafting a proposal of our ideas for you guys that we'll come and share here. We plan on utilizing the same format, that action plan kind of cycle 2 KISA form to help with our goals and our proof and who's kind of in charge of the certain outcomes so that we can track that data for you guys. So then if you look at that middle section, the EPIC survey results, after kind of breaking down the data for both separate ones, we found 3 kind of overlapping themes: professional respect, training, and compensation. So our team's goals actually kind of align directly with the goals for recruitment and retention, as you can see kind of in that picture there, with the creative culture, which is emotional and professional wellness, being a huge priority, developing a culture where our staff are safe and valued, and then developing a robust compensation of benefits program. So those kind of fit perfectly with those three that we already have as a district. So the steps that have been kind of taken or addressed so far, lots of rate raises, which we appreciate. I've heard several staff in my building, my classified staff even stopped Mr. Nelson the other day and said, thank you so much. So they're feeling it. And if you haven't heard thank yous, thank you, thank you. We appreciate that. So hourly rate raises for our classified staff, and then the hourly rate raises for certified staff if they're doing kind of some of that extra duty stuff. And then insurance changes for the bus barn for all of our drivers, which is terrific. And then the counseling and mental health services for our staff, that's been quite a bit of an uptick for staff utilizing those. And we appreciate your awareness of that. Vacation days for the 12-month employees were modified, which was really helpful for those who have worked kind of that 5 and 10 year, hitting those benchmark and getting some extra days. And then the leader in me, which we spent today doing, and it was fantastic. So thank you for approving that. Meeting the needs really of training our staff to help our students, but today was really about taking care of our staff, and they felt that. So we appreciate you guys supporting those initiatives for our staff and students. So any questions? I know that was kind of fast, but I don't want to take too much of your evening since you were waiting on me.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Lane, and I would like to, something we haven't quite figured out how to do, but I think was fairly resounding, was from both through the survey and verbally from our committee, was our classified staff have a deep desire for more learning and opportunities to grow professionally and to learn. And so that's something we're going to dig into this year and find out how we can not only offer more opportunities for them to learn and develop their skills, but also we threw around a lot of different ideas, but you know, as teachers get more knowledge and education, they can move over on the pay scale. And so we're kind of tossing around some ideas. Is there a way we could do that with classified staff? If they further their knowledge and learning in the area where they're working, can we find a way that where they can move over as they develop further learning? But that was a big one.
Yeah, that came from Tim Kaufman at the bus barn, just very passionate about taking care of our classified staff, being aware of our longest standing classified staff and kind of asking them, what has made you stay for this long? What could we do to continue to make you stay? And so he is just full of great ideas. Every time we meet as a team, he usually comes to my office the next day to just kind of break it down and talk through it. And so he's got great ideas and is a wonderful addition to our team. Anything else? Well, thank you guys. I appreciate your time. Yeah, thank you.
That's for the reports, so we'll go to discussion with business items versus the budget.
And so I won't read the first several paragraphs of the board report because they're carryover from the transfer meeting. So it's information you already know. Just remind you on a few of the key points to where we ended up to be able to stay revenue neutral. Few things, and this is just a reminder for you guys. I know you know, but just so our public can understand kind of some of the strategies that we're utilizing this year. So we are taking up the draft budget that's in front of you today does take LOB to the full authority at 32% to maximize state aid. In order to stay revenue neutral, we did have to decrease capital outlay from 7 to 6. So that's 2 mills down in 2 years. You guys had already set the capital outlay budget, so we will have to make some adjustments to that fund. I have some ideas on how we could accomplish that. You know, we can make a transfer, we can reallocate some expenses. There's some things that we can do that are short-term strategies. Again, to keep R&R down and to keep that LOB cash balance level, we did in the budget is recommended a $68,000 transfer from contingency reserve to LOB. And our strategy last year, you can go back and read last year's budget report a year ago. The strategy was to start that to stay R&R, but then over the 3-year time period that we would back that off. And by the end of year 3, we would not be using last year's money to fund the next year's budget. And we're on track to do that. We did 200 last year. We do 68 this year. There, and depending on where tax collections end up coming in and how much what the delinquency rate is. Once we get to the end of the year, I'm estimating we're probably gonna end around 150. And remember, we're starting at 189, and so we may want to look at $40,000 additional, but I don't think there's reason to do that yet, but we could do that at the end of the year. And again, that's to keep that LOB levy as steady as we can. And so we'll see how close I am on projections in 9 months. And it's hard because you can't predict human behavior, right? We don't know how tax collections, and if one patron who's a significant taxpayer would, dispute their taxes, it could have a pretty large effect on our collection rate in that fund. So we'll see. So with these strategies, that will be 2 years in a row where we've stayed revenue neutral. And the third year where we will levy fewer dollars than the year before. Thankfully, with the increase in base aid through general fund, with that base aid increasing and our enrollment staying steady, we've had some new dollars that don't come locally that we've been able to use for raises. And so that's been a blessing. The last report I saw was projecting a 4% base aid increase for next year. So they used the 3-year average of the CPI. And so, as we know, as that rate continues to go down, that return that we get back will continue to follow it. So it was 5% this year. If it's 4% next year, I'd anticipate somewhere in the 3s the following year. And again, these are great strategies. Thankful that we've been able to do these and keep the taxes down for our patrons. I know you probably get tired of me saying it, but it's not a long-term strategy and we can't use it forever. And so at some point we will need to probably look at raising rates at some point in the future if we want to maintain a similar budget. Deferred maintenance is another thing that I think we need to monitor very closely, especially with that decrease in capital outlay levy from 8 to 6 in the 2-year time period. Over a 5 years, that's $1.3 million that we're not generating to do deferred maintenance. So that's something that we'll need to watch. So short-term in capital outlay, my recommendation would be, as you guys recall, when you approved the capital outlay budget, there's a $115,000 technology line in there that we reallocate that to LOB instead of capital outlay to save some revenue in capital outlay. So just basically pay it out of LOB instead of capital outlay, because we generated more money in LOB by going to 32%.
And that gave us more state aid doing it that way than we've been kept. So.
And then later on in the agenda, we would also like to recommend and consider some custodial cleaning machines that were budgeted in capital outlay to use ESSER money for those. And if we did those two things, we wouldn't have to impact our capital outlay budget for next year would not have to be impacted. It could stay the same if we chose to utilize those two strategies. My biggest concerns are your big deferred maintenance items, roofs, parking lots, HVAC, things that cost a lot of money. And those are the things that we have a handful of roofs that we're close. 90% of our roofs are within, 5 to 8 years new. So we're doing really well. And our existing capital outlay plan addressed those roofs that only had a couple of years of usable life left. But being 2 mills down in capital outlay, it will be extremely, extremely challenging to find the dollars to replace those roofs and keep up in other areas. And so one thing that I wanted to remind and point out, suggest, whatnot, would be that our current bond, we'd levy about 6 mills, 6 to 8, depending on what state aid does, depending on what our cash basis in the fund. The last number of years, it's been between 6 and 8. We make our last payment in September of 26, so that's in 2 years. And so So our last year of collection will be 25, 26. So not this year, but the next year. So we'll collect to make that final payment. We could consider a tax neutral bond election within the next couple of years to where we could, keep the tax levy neutral or down, so you wouldn't increase taxes, but you could run an election for a bond equivalent or equal to what we're generating now in that 6 to 8 mil range. And then you could use those dollars to tackle a big chunk of those big ticket deferred maintenance items. Of course, that's an election and the community would have to talk about it. You guys would have to talk a lot more about it. We'd have to, there's a lot of pieces that would go. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that that was an option. I had a bond council run some preliminary rates, and these are estimates based on current market rates and things, but you could do a $10 million 15-year bond at 6 mils. Or an $8.5 million 15-year bond at 5 mils. And again, that's estimating future rates. So that's a ballpark. But if you did,
State's portion of that,
so post
17%.
so post 2015, they don't do state aid on new bonds anymore.
Really?
Which is unfortunate because right now we're getting 22% of free money in
Yeah,
bond.
that's when we did the bond in 01. And we did all the air conditioning in the district, it was like 32%.
Maybe
And then it dropped. Eventually, and yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And so anyhow, obviously that's time probably for a much larger discussion, but it might be a strategy that could keep us revenue neutral longer or keep tax collections as neutral as possible, by reusing that bond levy. And if we don't do something like that, we're gonna have to really look at what we would do not being at the full 8 mils in capital outlay. So,
And I could make even the 2 extra mills in capital outlay. We got some projects there that we just can't afford to do on a regular year. I mean, that parking lot at high school is gonna be a huge expense in the middle school. And with this one rolling off, I think it would be a good time to start to just kind of move in that direction and, like I say, fit it within the structure we have and do a good job of letting the community know what we need and both communities. There's things that need to be taken care of and we really can't take out of the budget and cover them large maintenance things. And I've talked to Brett also about moving up our facilities tour more to October this year, so we could start to get a little bit better look at that and start to put a few things together. Because I do want to make sure we do a great job and inform the communities of what's going on. And if we have enough of these big dollar projects, I think we need to look at something like this to take care of. So I think we do need to move forward. And I say not supersonic speed, but take our time and get it right and inform people.
Well, it'd have to be, if you did it, it wouldn't be until the 26, 27, or even 27, 28.
Right.
So you're looking 3 years down the road. Not because you have to let the other one expire first.
So, in here, I pull that chart up. Would you pull the board report up?
It's on.
Do you want me to do? Okay. I'll drive here. Dangerous here. So this isn't my presentation too, but this is, I hope, helpful. So you can kind of see that 3-year history of where our levy has been. And in my PowerPoint, I put in the total dollars collected too. So I'll jump to that one here in just a minute. So again, revenue neutral rate, we will, you guys the recommendation would be to vote to exceed, even though we're collecting less dollars. That way, if something does happen throughout the year, we have the authority to adjust. But our intention is we will collect less dollars than we did the year before, and I'll show you those exact amounts in the next page. And so in fact, why don't I just go there really quick?
But just collecting, taking that 2.5 mils out of the bond, will we be able to cover our payment? Do we have extra money in that account?
Yeah, so we set the levy at an amount to where we can comfortably make our payment. And so we had enough in our cash basis within that fund. And remember, our state aid it went up almost 10%. And so it was an extra $100,000 that we collected in free money through the bond fund. And that's because, well, let's jump to that here really quick, because it's a good question and it's hard to understand when you don't, especially when our public doesn't look at that every day. So I tried to make a visual that would make more sense. And so the blue bars are your assessed valuation, and those green and orange lines, that's your state aid. So C is that bar, and I couldn't get them to correlate exactly, but maybe we took that giant jump this year in assessed valuation, right? That was the pipeline. And so state aid doesn't adjust till the next year. So we took that giant jump in assessed valuation and we kept the same amount of aid for that year. That's why those of you that were around, remember that year we took our levy down by like 2 or 3 mils because we had a jump in assessed valuation and our state aid didn't adjust. Well, look what happened this year when the state aid adjusted. State aid tanked, assessed valuation kept going up. And so we collected, I think that year, like $300,000 in less in aid that we had to make up in taxes. So then what the levy do? It went back up 2 mils, 130,000 a mil times 2, close to 300,000. Well, look what's assessed valuation that year was another 15 million or so. And then we adjusted, and then look what happened to assessed valuation. It stayed about flat. And I think it might have even went down a little bit this year. So look what started happening to aid. So as our assessed valuation stays flat, we're in comparison to the other 286, in this example, they go up, we stay level. So our rank goes up in the amount of aid that we get. So if we can keep assessed valuation, which we don't have any control over, but if we can keep that not going up one or down one way or another by a whole bunch, then it's super helpful for us. But it's really hard because state aid's a year in the rear. And so that makes it really tough to plan for. Whereas most taxing entities, as that assessed valuation goes up, it's a really good thing because you get dollar for dollar the increase of the value of a bill. Well, we don't, because we send our first 20 bills off to the state, it gets put in a pot and then it gets redistributed. And so we don't get that dollar for dollar, like we get it back in the form of aid, but you're always having to project and estimate what it's going to be the next year. And really, we have no control over knowing what that is. The only bar that we have is it going up significantly in comparison to history? And so here's our history. And so for a long time, we could count on 4 or 5 million a year. That was nothing too much out of the box. That was it. That meant our state aid was going to stay within a ballpark of each other. It wasn't a guessing game. The last 3 or 4 years, it's been kind of a guessing game because when you take a 30 million jump in one year, a 15 million jump in another year, there's no bar to know what that's going to do. Now with the pipeline, we kind of knew, but we didn't know how much. The other piece that affects this too is the county plan where you get money off your taxes and build some neighborhood revitalization. So we've had a lot more movement in that arena within our county in the last few years. And so that plays with assessed valuation too, because that gets taken off the top. I think we're at 9 million or something this year, and we've never had it anywhere remotely close to. Kind of neat, but anyhow, so good. Did that help answer your question, Jason?
Yeah.
So here's our enrollment history. As you can see, we've stayed, in the ballpark, pretty steady, even growing just a smidge, dropping a smidge. And unfortunately this year, That number's gonna be in the 1240 range probably for FTE. And again, this is the base aid. Because of the Gannon decision, we've continued to take that nice increase in base aid per pupil. And so each spring, they'll estimate what our increase is gonna be. And with our decrease in enrollment, it's gonna be a lot lower number than we've seen the last 2 years. And so it's something that we're gonna have to really watch. The data is the data. There's not a lot we can do to control it. But it's something we're gonna have to watch very closely. There's assess valuation. So you can see here, this is just the number version of what state aid did. So you can see back in, LOB, we were back in the 40%. We're at 32 now. This should be the last year of that going down. Because remember, LOB's on a 3-year average, capital outlay and bond are on. They're 1 year, so your aid's impacted the next year, LOB's 3-year average. And so you see where capital outlay and bond and interest rebounded this year, which was super, super helpful, especially in the bond fund. Being able to take that levy down. If that aid wouldn't have bounced back up, there's no way we would have been able to stay revenue neutral if that aid would have stayed where it was. That's the one I just showed you. And so here's the dollars. If you look at the bottom of that slide, can you guys see that? That shows the total dollars collected, local tax dollars collected. So 2023, 4,067,000. Last year, 4,045,000, and this year, 4,020,000. And so, and the levy stayed slightly dropping too. But again, I'm super thankful and that we've been able to do that. Again, I don't see that it is sustainable long-term if we want to maintain and fund the same budget. So I always like to do this kind of draw a circle around Clay County and grab the districts and where their levies are at. So you can see and our peers that are around us, and NCKL League schools are always a good benchmark because size-wise, when we combine Wakefield and Clay Center, enrollment-wise, we're about the same as all the NCKL League schools are kind of within that same size realm. So it's a nice benchmark, but you can see where our levy falls. We're much lower than almost all of our peers. And I think this is something that is notable that, our entity as an organization has been able to collect fewer taxes than 90% of our peer districts and area districts.
Could you give us the value of the levy for the NCKL schools, what each of theirs is? Right?
Probably find it somewhere. You mean how many dollars are collected?
Yeah, per levy for the NCKL schools.
How many years? Do you want to just?
Just last year, just compared to last year's, this year, so it's fun. Just be interesting to know the value of their mills.
And then this is something else that I think is extremely important to be proud of too. I feel like we've done a great job in finding the balance on what is needed to provide a high quality instruction to our students. And I always like to see where we are in comparison to the state average. And so as you can see, we've been able to maintain and at or below state average expenditure. And I think that's, again, if we need to spend it to have high quality services, then we do. But we've been able to, this just shows a history of being able to, in my opinion, be good stewards of our tax collection. This is a 5-year comparison on base pay, again, NCKL League. And you can see where we were 5 years ago compared to where we are now, and only by, what is that, $39? I think in base pay. So we've been able to stay super competitive, and man, we hear it when we interview new teachers. I mean, they look at that, they see that. And when they're comparing in our area, it certainly makes a big impact that we've
Kind
been.
of wonder if Amigos isn't gonna jump big with Caterpillar leaving that over there. Tax dollars wise.
You said there's another entity.
Yeah, but That's all, they're talking about the guy from Marysville, Landall, but it may take 2 or 3 years to get him in there, so their mill levy might get affected quite a bit because their tax collection. You know, when you close a plant, they employed 400 people.
Everything.
Yeah.
Most of these are all things that you guys I've talked to you about. This is something that I wanted to dig into just a little bit further with you. And so again, as you guys know, we have to do a lot of estimating in our business. And so estimating and predicting human behavior and population is very difficult. So we do our best. This year, it's not really too much of an estimation, being 3 years or 3 days from the start of school. But as it stands right now with our outgoing seniors last year at each school, incoming kindergarten, there's 57 in Clay Center and 7 in Wakefield. That's a difference of 37 students. And so when we combine general fund and LOP with weightings, this is the amount we bring in per pupil. And so when you multiply that by that, if enrollment stays where it is, which it's only going to change probably within a handful up or down. If we want to fund the same budget in 25-26, we are going to have to find $400,000. If trends would stay the same, again, we don't know if they will or if they don't, but if this new class size is a trend and not an anomaly, this is a two big classes, 99 seniors right now in Clay Center and 21 in Wakefield. And if we would bring in, in the same range of a kindergarten class next year, that'd be 50 down for a total of 87 students in 2 years. It's $1 million. So as you guys know, but I'm not sure that our public always understands this because it's not easy to understand. So this year we can live on last year's September 20th number. So the 1284.5. And then you throw in whatever you have for at risk on top of that. And that's what you get funded for that year. So it'll be this year, it'll be probably 1295, 1296, something like that. Fine, right? Fund the same budget. Not a big deal. It's the following year. So in FY26, so next year, if our enrollment doesn't bounce back, remember the new law they just passed, this year we can use current year, previous year, or 3-year average. But next year, it's current or previous only. And so if it's current or previous only, it's going to be that number. Or if we would have some big spike in enrollment, we could use the current year. So what data do we use to try to make decisions? Well, birth rates are one thing that we look at very closely. So, we were in the 17 and 18, we were in the 90s. And then that's this year's the majority of this year's kindergarten. Now it does split between the years depending on their birth date when they're eligible to enroll, but you can see a little bit of a dip there. And then next year kindergartners were a little higher, but somewhere we're losing 15 kids in between when they're born, when they come to kindergarten for this year's class. So, and then you can see, I guess if you look for a positive, there's not any huge dips in there. But I think, probably the 80s to 90s district-wide is where we are and what we need to plan to be in the future. I don't think we're going to hit over 100 kids as a district, combined schools. I don't see that. There's no data I'm seeing that shows that that's likely to happen again. Now, hopefully 60 isn't, 65, 67 isn't the number. Hopefully it's in the eighties. And this is an anomaly. Remember, we had that real weird year, my first year here. In 1920, 5 years ago, we had that big dip. And then we came right back out of it.
Do you know our that senior class at Clay Center High School? That's the biggest class we've had in 12 years. Ever since they were kindergarten. I mean, it was like 107 or 105 when they were kindergarten. They've been that size. That's the only one that's ever been like that in the last 12 years. So.
But anyhow, with, lots to talk about, but I do believe that we're gonna probably have to have some pretty hard conversations heading into next year in regards to staffing, and hopefully through some attrition and some things like that, we can do some things that are not quite as intrusive, but that we can do through attrition and natural processes versus other means or methods, but we'll get some extra money in base aid if 4% comes true. That's gonna be in the $400,000 range, so again, you can say, well, if we don't wanna.
That's the break even number. That's not doing anything for anybody.
Yeah, and then they don't have anything left for
Yeah.
health insurance
Yeah,
or
that's what I'm
property
saying.
casualty or,
That's the break even if you stay status quo.
yeah. It's unfortunate. It's one of those things that, from roundup to actual enrollment, every year I've been here, you add 10 to 15 to it. Whoever showed up to enrollment, you add 10 to 15 for whatever reason. And it didn't happen this year. And I don't know, we just hope that it's a blip and an anomaly and not something that's a pattern, I suppose. So let's see here. So there's our averages. Well, where'd my PowerPoint go? There's our expenditures. And then, yeah, there's our dollars, and I think that's what I have. So if we jump to the actual budget packet now. The thing to remember is every year we get quite a few questions on. It's on some of the summary pages especially, but within each fund. We always say, I always get the question, well, why are we spending so much more this year? And that's important to remember, we're not spending more, but we have to budget to spend more to have the authority. Otherwise, we have to republish. So if you want to look at actuals, you need to go to each fund within the budget packet. And then you can see actuals. And we are spending this year. We did a 10.5% increase to classified and a 4% to certified. And so naturally we're spending more. But if you jump to one of the codes, like 06 or 08 is probably the easiest to look at if you get through your open page. So here's general fund. So this is where you can see what we're actually spending within each line item and what we're budgeting to spend. If you look at the overall amount on the summary, or even over here, we always add authority. Otherwise, because if we don't have the authority, we can't spend it. Just like in capital outlay, we budget, so we put our actual budget in the plan that you guys approved. That's in line item down. But then we'll have another line where we put in the full authority amount. So it shows as an expenditure, but we're not planning to spend that dollar amount. That's just there if we have to access that cash balance we carry. If we don't build that authority in, we can't spend it. If something were to happen. So anyhow, happy to take questions on anything out there.
So that's why like some of them like insert 290 to 620 and when you're looking at investments. Let's go through it. But yeah, that was my question. If you have one goes from 0 to 410, one goes from 0 to 510.
That's our authority lines.
They never spend a penny of it. But if you don't have it there, you can't spend it, you can't spend any of it.
And when we do it, I mean, you'll look at, I think throughout the town hall, and like, we've got, you know, like, there's like $2,000 in cash. Like in all the funds. I mean, we're taking it down after we put the revenue in, we try to take it down as much as we can just to not have to republish.
On the instruction expenditures, we've run around 15 million, we're budgeting 18 million, is that, I guess, I didn't go back and look last year's, but is that normal, like 3.5 million more? That'd be pretty solid. Or,
It'd be most of it would all be in authority. Would any of the ESSER stuff be counted as instructional? That would be a big increase.
It would. I mean, it's all funds. So yeah, the ESSER stuff that's in there that we're gonna spend $1 million to get it spent
Yeah,
is all instructional.
gotta get rid of it.
Yeah, we gotta spend everything but that.
So that could be a big increase there, just the fact that you gotta get rid of it.
And we, like, if we give a 4%, we're gonna buffer that, what we're gonna spend a little bit more than what we actually know we are. And I would imagine if you go back year to year, it probably is greater this year, and the off the cuff, it would be ESSER.
The chunk of it, yeah. And yeah, like I said, the 10.5% on classified and certified. You know, that stuff's, I mean, and those are real numbers in there. That's why if you go line by line, you can see how much we're spending on salaries. Inside, it's kind of, the summary is just kind of misleading a little bit because it makes you think, oh, but it's really not when you break it down.
So by 1,000, that's anything that's in 1,000 code within that budget, that's counted. Every 1,000 line throughout the entire budget's counted into that total.
Grant, I got a quick question, for instance, on when we're from Mark Chapman complex, for instance, when it comes to the turf replacement on that, because I know it's got a limited longevity life on it. Then are we setting aside funds yearly to go ahead and offset that initial expense when it comes time?
Yeah, so they're estimating, you know, there's a lot between 10 and 15 years. And so in the replacements, half of what it costs to put in. And so there's about 900 just for the turf piece. And so we, you know, who knows in 10 years what it's gonna be, but we would, when you're about 5-6 years out, you'd probably start setting aside versus setting aside 12 years out would be my opinion. Once you get within 5 to 6, 7 years of when it needs to be replaced, start setting aside that money. That way you don't carry that big of a cash balance for 10 years or 12 years. You carry that bigger balance for a shorter term. But yes, that would be a great strategy. Once we get a little closer to start doing that.
Also a good time to, like, the water bill that we've got in the budget right now, like what we had last year, actual year before was $50,000 less. So, I mean, it was significant.
Great, thank you.
It's the first place we're cutting all the water in Ward office to make it go to shortstop.
We don't have a drinking fountain.
You don't have a drinking fountain?
No.
Darn.
It's okay. Okay.
Anything else, Brett?
What do you have on there for the total mill levy? Is it same going up? What was the total?
Going
48.
down, going down slightly.
I thought it was like 48 something. Yeah, there it is. Also went down like 0.3. Yeah. And we're still 3 mills below the state average, so. If we have to go up a little bit, we probably won't, we'll still be below if we had to go up next year. Because that state average is probably gonna raise, because we're not the only one in this predicament.
I don't think birth rates are a Clay County trend. From talking to a lot of people,
I think there's a big deal on,
it's everywhere.
yeah, there's a big deal that, I mean, it's been talked about, even like Manhattan, some of the places that kids aren't going to rural areas. I mean, people aren't having kids and things are changing, so. It's not just affecting us, even Manhattan and Lawrence, Topeka, all the schools. You know, how did we do on the new law on the out of district stuff?
It didn't impact us a lot, you know, it just didn't, you know, kind of like what we thought, we've always had open enrollment.
Right,
You know, we've always accepted non-resident
Kind of
We
students.
always get a few new ones every year.
Yeah.
We got a few new ones, but
As long
How
as
many
you're in-
contracted students did we get from Milton?
I think maybe one, but I don't even know if that's confirmed yet.
correct.
Well, my sister-in-law's assistant superintendent in Goddard. And they had 480 kids apply to their district and it took 40% out of Wichita.
And like I've kind of thought all along, that was a law written not for rural communities, so it was a
written for
law
big
written
towns.
for urban area.
But that was, you know, that many kids applied and they only took 40% of it. That means them kids are still looking for a home. Yeah.
And how many schools did Wichita close this year?
They closed grade schools
Closed
more than anything, and then and Topeka closed a couple grade schools too, so. Trying to combine, you know, neighborhoods, but you even like Milford, I mean, I've always said we should. Address that situation a little bit more as a school district, you know, kind of promote our school, hey, you got a sixth grader, you got a fifth grader, hey, we'll take your kindergartner, you know. Maybe try to figure out a transportation thing or something and, you know, but. Cause Milford buses kids clear from. Elmdale Road, which is the new Dollar General on Highway 77 to Milford. To keep that school viable. If we could eliminate some of that and try to attach some of those kids, cause they only go to fifth grade. So after that, they gotta find. And that would be something for us to look at to help us out in the future. As far as that goes, so.
Any other questions, Brett? Going it will be next month, but here in the next couple of months, we're understanding. Is that everything we're paying for this year out of this or. And grants that, you know, we won't have next year that money. I just like to have a list of what that is we're doing.
Jacqueline has a report done.
Yeah, I did one in February and I'm gonna just update it to add the summer learning things on it. For you guys.
Well, actually, not a hurry, but we'd
Sure.
like to have it here next couple of months as we start. Looking at this.
So Brett, what's your schedule on the budget? What do you got?
Let's see, so basically September, so we have to advertise, I'll hop to the dates here. I think we can hit all of our regular meetings. It's a long report. So if we do, obviously we have to hold the R&R hearing and the budget hearing. And I think we can hit all of our publication deadlines and timelines. If you guys would approve this budget, we would send it to the paper. And let it sit its time where, you know, it's statutorily needed to. And then that would put us in good position to hold both hearings on the regular meeting on September 9th. And then, be set to formally approve the budget, in September at that meeting. So I think everything lined out to where I don't think we need a special meeting or.
I'll make the motion. I move to give final approval to hold the revenue neutral rate hearing at 6 p.m. on September 9th, 2024. Publish a notice of hearing for the 2024-25 budget and hold a budget hearing following the R&R hearing.
Have a motion, second, and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Very good.
You're back up, Jacqueline. Unless you want me to stay on, is it easier if I stay on?
Either way, but I'm getting ready to move that out in the public, so.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so tonight, I mentioned it in the budget, you can see kind of our tentative closeout numbers there. And for ESSER, so the intention with tonight would be to see what you guys' appetite is for. Shifting those floor machines, the custodial floor machines from capital outlay. 5 and 5. out of capital outlay, move them into ESSER because it's a PPE thing already approved, pretty, cut and clean and dry way, save some of that revenue, make up for some of that loss in revenue within capital outlay, make that purchase out of ESSER. And then next month, we'd have final closeout numbers where we'd ask for final approval to finish closing out ESSER at the September meeting. So tonight it would be, and that's the next agenda item is the RFP for the custodial equipment. And so, happy to take any feedback on ESSER closeout, but the action for it would actually happen under the custodial equipment agenda item, if that makes sense. If you guys wanted to take action.
And also just a reminder that, I mean, next September's meeting, I mean, that's it.
We have to be done.
That's it.
Any questions on it?
The April one, the total was 934. It's, now it's not 793, is that from the summer learning?
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah, finished out those summer learning bills. And the 4 machines, we sent out an RFP and there, all of that stuff's in there for you, but Craig had done some research and recommended some equipment that him and his staff are used to using. And size wise, brand wise, whatever else goes into it.
Same service.
Everybody pick up out of this?
I got one thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I don't think so. They might,
Put it under retention.
maybe yes, or please might come.
Somebody who had to find. Had to find a pickup or to keep somebody. But, you put a lot of things in that retention, but. Any questions for Craig at all on the clean? Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna reference that chart.
Mhm.
So your balance remaining. When I added or subtracted that, I came up with 117,222. So,
Oh, that 10 might not, that 10,000 at the top.
It's an
We
estimate.
thought we had it all, that's my bad. We had it all accounted for and then, a couple of random bills came in later after we'd done that drawdown. And I
From
think
summer learning.
from summer learning, that's that summer learning final costs. I put that back in there because I'd taken it out. Because we were done, and then it's like, oh, hey, here's a couple more bills that came in. And when I say a couple more bills, it was the aquatic center and, a couple of staff. So when I reinserted that back into the table, I didn't adjust.
okay,
So, yeah, it'll be 117-ish,
okay. Thank you.
because that 10,000 is,
Itch.
there's some, like I said, there's some payroll in there, so it's got some FICA Medicare.
And if you could clear up something else for me, on the balance remaining of ESSER was on June 10th was 554,947. So then on the August date, why do we start with 793,997?
That's the balance that we have out available to be drawn down. So I pull that number, I can't, it's the Federal Cash Management Act that you can't pull it, you spend it and you get reimbursed.
Okay,
So that 793,997 would have been after our
Expenditures.
after our July draw. So when I opened it up in August, that was the amount that we had in there and then started backing down what we had.
okay,
So with federal, like with our local revenues, when we write a check, we write a check, it comes, out of our account, that's how it is with federal dollars. You spend it and then you submit to them to be reimbursed for it. So you actually go negative in federal funds and that's what they want you to do. That's what you're supposed to.
We can't collect interest on their money.
okay.
Well, that, and they want to make sure you're spending it, so then they don't give it to you until you're a negative, so then they cover you.
Okay.
They got big daddies watching you. I'm good with moving the floor machines over. Did, was there something else you wanted to move over?
Yeah, two sets of floor, one's bathroom cleaners and one's.
So I thought you had another item too that you wanted to move to.
Oh.
From capital outlay,
The technology
Yeah.
purchase.
which is what, probably 115 or 120,000 or something like that. Yeah, that was some normal little year by year thing. Yeah, I'm good with that too, if everybody else is.
Any other questions on the custodial stuff? All good? So I moved to accept the bid from Puro Zone for the first of the 5 advanced floor scrubbing machines and 5 K-back 17-gallon no-touch cleaning machines in the amount of $73,389.25 using ESSER 3 funds.
Second.
Got a second? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0.
In August, if you can remember when they approved the budget and when they approved the budget in September, just go ahead and say. Move 115 from capital outlay to LOB. To LOB. That way it's normally approved. That'd be good.
Next, we have a graduation date.
Haven't started school yet. I'm worried about the date.
So I think our,
Give it the end in mind.
our principals,
Right.
you know, people want to lock up dates and get cards and all of that. And so, with some of the conflicts last year, we had our principals go take a look at these dates and Acacia calendars and all the Kansas college graduation dates, which they're kind of all over the place in Kansas, but Acacia does not have a state competition scheduled on that weekend for next year. A lot of the state competitions happen after school's out even for next year.
That's even earlier than last year. That Mother's Day again?
Yeah, I think so.
Saturday.
Saturday. It'd be the Saturday.
Saturday.
Yeah, it'd be the day before.
Any questions on it? So I moved to accept. Where's it? Is it there? Sorry.
No,
So
sorry.
I moved to approve the graduation dates for CCCHS and WHS for the 2024-25 school year. Second, all those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. ASB delegate assembly.
Yeah, this is something, sometimes the board has chosen to elect somebody, sometimes they haven't, it's entirely up to you. So just wanted to put it out there, so August can let them know who it is if you want to have a representative.
Jason did last.
He did such a good job.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, I appointment that was.
I did. I'm done.
I'll have to look and see.
Are you guys fine if it works, just have an August and,
Yeah.
if Jason can do it, so.
I'm fine with that. If it works for him, like this, we can. We have to. All right, Tiger House lumber passage.
Yeah, we included the RFP there in the report and kind of gave you guys some background on this last month, so I won't bore you to death of repeating it, but. Actually, this will simplify the process for business office and our class a little bit better because they can do an OPO. Keep it open. We send it to three vendors and only one sent it back and we felt like it was a good competitive number comparing it to past packages and prices. And so we would ask that you approve that one. So choose.
And move to accept the lumber package bid from Clay County Lumber in the amount of $33,765.96 as presented.
Motion. Second. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Ground vehicle.
Yeah, so we sent an RFP to 3 dealerships, both are local dealerships, and then one outside, there it is, of the county too. We did get one response. It felt like it was a super competitive response. Our Mike and Jason did quite a bit of research on auctions and used and with the profile of vehicle that they wanted. And we were gonna be in that mid to upper 40 range with the used, with 40,000 miles on it. So based on the value at the 52, I don't have it up here, but at that number that's in there, that's brand new, full warranty. Yeah, it's the 52,275, and that would be ordering new from a factory, and it would take 6 months. They did write into their bid, I think it's in there, that if they could go find one of the exact same brand new on a lot somewhere, that it would allowed up to 1,000 additional for retrieval fees and going and getting it and all of that. So, and they did find one somewhere in our region. And so that amount reflects the additional, that up to the additional 1,000 for the whatever they call that fee. I forget what they call it.
Acquisition fee.
Is that right? Acquisition.
That's
There
they
you
have to pay another dealer to take it.
probably would be my guess.
Yeah.
And this
If they
does.
ordered one, how long would it take? You're talking
6 months.
about- It takes 6 months to order it.
And so this one,
I'm surprised I got it that fast.
the big deal about that, it does have the snow plow package on it, which has a heavier front end and it has the hookups and requirements necessary for the snow plow.
How big a
And-
dump trailer is that?
How big's the dump trailer?
That'd be a 82 by 16.
16 foot.
Is what we're proposing, you know, that's the size that we're going for. We need something big enough to hold the tractor in as well. Is what we'd be looking to get rid of the gooseneck and using this trailer as a combination for both of them.
Was that a bumper hitch?
That is a bumper.
Some of them have a weight limit on them.
They do. It's a
Yeah.
smaller tractor. We would be.
Well, I'm just saying, I have a 14 by 84 and it's only can hold 10,000 pounds, so you know, just gotta be careful about.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And we had the discussion on it, and that maybe a good point, but having it built versus having it built locally versus purchasing from a, you know.
So that's not a one, so it's,
That's the authority to spend up to that amount.
yeah, but so it's not an actual certified dump trailer from a dealer.
That number would get us a dump trailer, a title dump trailer.
Okay.
In that dimensions, and then it'd be electric over hydraulic, tandem axle, single wheel, two-way gate, standard, what we do looking for.
And then on the attachments, we had bids from a place in Wichita, a place in Kansas City, and then the maintenance staff based on what they wanted. And so that snow plow and spreader, so that's a spreader that can go into the back of the truck, come in and out during winter time, and then a plow, obviously, that can come on and off, and I forget, it's whatever Jason, he did a ton of research. And what's it called, the speed, something or other, speed
Speed
wing?
Yeah, it's a Blizz Tech with a extended wing on it, and the box is a full poly aluminum box that we fit in and make the box.
And so then that total amount, if you guys would approve, would keep us under budget by a couple $1,000.
So go back up to the,
I'm not driving it.
I'm driving, there you go.
okay, so it says dump trailer there, 15 grand, you go down to the written, it says 16 grand. So which is it? We recommend moving forward seeking and purchasing an in dump trailer not to exceed 16. But up in your chart, you have 15, right there.
Yeah.
Well, up earlier, we talked about it, because there was several,
There's one,
15.
that's just, oh, there's one there, it says 15 too, so.
It's 15.
It's 15.
Okay,
It was initially it was 16 and then it went down to 15.
15,
I
okay.
missed a spot.
But in the motion, it says 16. So. Which is it? I mean, the motion says 16, the box says 15, the writing says 16. The upper writing says 15, so
Looks like the estimate is 15,000, but we want to approve to not to exceed 16,000. Is that
15.
is that how I want to?
15 would get us. I mean, you can if you want to, but 15 will get us. If you wanted to wiggle room, that's fine, but.
Any other questions?
so moved as printed. Move on.
Either way, the first place and four,
You
we have
adjust
three
it,
or
that'll
more
be loaded
changes.
for
Starts to be
15.
I don't think we did it for half the- I move to accept the bid from Glaven Ford for the purchase of a new three-quarter pickup not to exceed $53,675. Move forward with the salt spread and snow blade modifications not to exceed $16,320. And purchase of a new dump and trailer not to exceed $15,000. Second. Motion is second. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Naming rights.
Yeah, so we started talking about this a little bit last month and just wanted to continue the discussion and see if you guys had a little bit of time to process and digest and see what your thoughts are.
You're up, Shannon.
Okay, just a minute, let me get my papers in order. Sorry. Okay. Just so that I need more clarification, because I think I potentially am misunderstanding the purpose of this process. I thought we were raising money to switch the direction of the volleyball nets. Is that
They're doing that by having people pay to advertise.
advertise?
So the advertising money that they're gonna get their name on there, but they're gonna take the money that people are paying to move the court.
Okay, so how? Let's see. So when you have. We had the pictures of the pads. I'm assuming that's what they're
Put them
called.
up there.
Where,
Pictures of the pads that showed the tigers and.
and
Up in the donation line. So Shannon, maybe a little bit of clarification. So history wise, as a district, we have never had guidelines
For advertising.
for advertising. The only thing that was in place, board approved it. That was it. And so we've gotten good intentions, no bad intentions, in my opinion. It's just, we didn't have any consistency with guidelines. And so it's kind of been a nuance that I've been on my mind for the last 5 years. And we did the stadium deal and we started putting some guidelines in place. But the intent of this agenda item is to put a framework around the process for advertising and naming rights. So that one school doesn't charge 500 for something and another school charges 5,000. So that's big picture, no matter what it is. If we're putting naming or advertising in a school, it's gonna fit within a guidelines and it's gonna have an agreement with it. Because prior, that's the other thing, we never had any agreements in place. So if I went to a business and said, hey, I'll put your name on the gym. There was nothing in writing that, hey, that lasts for 5 years or 10 years or 2 years or 1 year. And it can create some angst 10 years down the road when whoever the parties that entered into that have no idea when it goes, when it comes, how long it stays. So that's the overall goal of this, is to put some guidelines around it, put some parameters around it, which is not easy because this, for example, these are mats and standards that are gonna be moved out for a game. And then after the game, they're taken up, put in the closet. So they're only out for 5 times a season. They don't sit out there all the time. Okay, because the ones in the ceiling are staying up in the ceiling for practice and stuff. They come down. And so, when you set pricing guidelines, it's difficult because something that's out in a
You
gym.
might see that 5 or 6 times a year for 2 hours.
Right, or whereas something, if it's on the wall in a gym, it's 12 months out of the year, how many ever events we have. So that's the hard part in making guidelines, I think, and something that we've struggled with.
But in my thought process is making guidelines for advertising is different than raising money to
Do something.
do a project.
They're kind of both.
But, okay, so does the advertising pay for that pad right there?
So their price breakdown, orange and black pack is paying a portion of it. their building athletics budget is paying a portion of it, the amount they could afford, and then whatever was left, that's what they're going and soliciting advertising for to finish off to pay for the whole project.
So the whole project with the new net and everything, didn't he say it was $12,000?
10 to 12, something like there.
So you know, if if the Orange and Black Pack puts in 5 and their budget puts in 5, you know, or 2,500, then they gotta come up with 4 or 5,000. So if they go after that in advertising, they'll cover what they need to do the project.
So you got two different things going on here. Last meeting, we talked about giving this one a trying it
Trial run.
and see how it goes to help us make decisions on the long-term big idea of advertising. And that's where I'm struggling with on how to set guidelines is because how do you set it when there's so many nuances? For example, this prime example of it's only out 5 times versus if we go to name the gym floor down the road to get it redone
It's
And
there 24/7,
all the time.
365 days a year,
Yeah.
just like the football field.
And
It's
so-
there until you pull the turf up.
And you know, we've talked to some business owners about the same thing, and they're like, well, it depends. How many people are gonna see it? You know, how long it's out there, how many people are gonna see, you know, that's all part of. And so, but I think it's gonna be real hard to be very black and white with some of it, but my goal has been at least put some parameters around it to where we're not on complete ends of the spectrum from school to school.
And I think
One
some of
thought I
that,
had on this is that, after thinking about it, is like these agreements should be whether they're 3 or 5, no more. Anything above that should be individually dealt with and then voted on the board, because I don't know if we can create a policy that covers all of that, but I think we can, these shorter term ones, 3 years. See what I'm saying? And again, we're just talking here, we're not finalizing anything, we're just talking here, is that, but that's one thought that I can, and the yearly stuff that's just 1 year, the banners and all that, they've been doing that. I don't think it needs to be included in there. That's my opinion. That's just the advertising's been going on. And,
I like the banners on the football field.
Yeah, that's
Or the
stuff they've been-
softball field.
you know, the scorers table stuff and that's paid for yearly and that's not a multi-year deal. You know, I don't see a need to try to include all of that in this. I think this is multi-year stuff that we want to do.
But I think the important part is if we're gonna do this and it's gonna be a multi-year deal, there needs to be some kind of contract with a date on it.
That's exactly right.
Because if you don't have the date on it, when it started, when it needs to finish, there's only gonna be, what if a business had sold in that 3-year period or a 5-year period?
Right.
Hey, we had that forever. No, you did not.
Right.
So here's a kind of a draft of a starting point of a contract that Ryan Mullen drew up for us. That we did use up there at the new stadium. But I agree, and we ran into a problem a couple of years ago, and not a big problem, but it was just like, well, what do you mean it's time to move the sign? Well, it's X old and we need to move it, and so we just need it in writing. And we're not gonna deal with this, if you're talking things over 5,000, we're not gonna deal with it very often.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be not very often. I don't know what that means.
And they'll still all have to come before the board.
Well,
Because that part hasn't changed.
No, that's in policy now.
I just was concerned on a previous, when it said to establish a procedure for business advertisement on district property structures and locations, but then it says bring some consistency around advertising and naming rights. And in my mind, advertising and naming rights are two opposite things.
And there is a policy on naming rights
There-
that it
oh.
is the board.
Okay.
Anything named in the district facility has to be board approved. That's already in policy.
Okay.
The only thing we're really changing is put contracts in place when we do this and have some guide to where somebody's not selling something for 5 and somebody's not selling something for 3,000. That's the whole point. And I think that's an interesting idea over 5.
Yeah, I think
individual, I mean, I
you
don't,
probably individually, because that's gonna be your big stuff, anything over 5 years.
Well, I think if it's over 5 years, it's gonna have to be a significant amount.
Exactly, I agree. It's kind of like we talked during this thing, if they change their logo, what it says in there that if they want their logo changed on whatever it's in, they gotta pay for that. That's additional cost, you know, it's not, we're gonna pay for your logo, even though you're paying us for the advertising. So just things like that, we just need to clear out.
you know, another goal that I didn't mention was we have some significant semi-permanent signage around our district in various places now, but would be to get as a result of this, would be to get agreements in place on all of those. Just so communication's clear, everyone's on the same page, we know how long that agreement is in place.
You know, Brad, going back to, that proposal for the advertising space agreement, for instance, on that, item number 3, I noticed right here, you know, all advertising on or upon the property or location set forth in paragraph 2 must be approved by the district. Okay, could it be specific where it would be approved by the board?
Sure, and the policy already says that it has to.
Okay.
There's already board policy, it's called naming and.
Here,
Fine. And then on the second page, for instance, then would it behoove us to have also a line for signed by the board president and by board council?
Don't need me on it. I mean, no,
Well,
The attorney does.
I state that, and this goes back to school naming rights that are sent out prior to review, because, and I'll just read this briefly, because naming right deals are so valuable. Just using this in general across the board for what's happened in the past. Not all these would-be sponsors would take rejection lying down. Some are likely to mount First Amendment challenges to their exclusion. These challenges will shift the focus back to schools to show legitimate reasons for rejecting the sponsor. So if that has already happened, which it has in the past in other schools, then that's not to say that it couldn't never happen here. So if we have that reviewed by bond counsel,
by board council.
board counsel, thank you. Then at the same time, if we ever have to go back on the paperwork to poll, then we can say, okay, we did clarify everything through this proper channels, through the proper steps in reviewing this. Now, it's not to say it'll ever happen, but obviously it has in the past. So that's what I was just trying to, maybe for future generations anyway.
Oh, I don't think it's a bad idea to have board president on there, but I think Dusty's on our side unless he has a conflict of interest, so. that's
Just
what
so
that-
whatever come up, he would represent us, is how I look at that.
Well, that's what I.
Yeah.
I'm not sure signing it does any,
Good.
changes anything in the
In fact, he,
picture.
This basically is review.
Right.
well, I think you review most.
But I think if
contracts
we review, if he reviews what the contract is after, but you know, I don't think he needs to sign off on it.
Okay.
I just
And
think
so put that policy back up, Jacqueline, would you
the
mind?
board
please?
policy.
There you go. So that's already board policy that the board has to approve all naming. And there's one for advertising too.
Right.
But the board, if they have to approve that, but what's the process by which a person would want a facility named?
Well, it takes a little bit.
I'll give an example. They wanted, I think the staff at Wakefield wanted the library named Dr. Carol Slingsby
Okay,
after she had passed. So the principal and staff members wrote a letter of support and it came to the superintendent. And then shared it with board president and they kind of had their discussions and then it came to the board. And now that,
There's a
That
plaque,
room.
there's a plaque in there.
and there's a sign going into the library. named after her. But that was an example of
That whole
not,
weekend.
has nothing to do with advertising, it was just a naming.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on the difference between the two.
I think advertising is gonna be like the logos and their name, and naming is gonna be a little bit more. I mean, it's like the wing, and when you walk in the front door at Wakefield's, that's the Francis Normandin wing on that building. I mean, there's a bronze plaque on the outside of the building when you walk in there. But they named that wing after her.
I mean, the new athletic complex.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah, and it was all approved by the board to name that, the Mark Chapman Athletic Facility.
That's
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a little different than the advertising.
no,
As far as that goes. I think this contract thing here would be for like the logos and things like that, but. And I don't know, like Tracy, I don't know if the banners that hang on the outfield fences need to be part of that. Do they pay to have those put up there?
They do.
Every year.
Every year they give an
I mean, we just got ours little piece of
annual
paper
donation.
down at the bank and,
Yeah.
yeah, we want to renew it and
Yeah,
send it in.
I'm sorry, is that orange and black pack or is that district?
No, that's a athletic. Yeah,
the Clay Center High School Athletic Department does that. Yeah,
so we do that in the sports table. And we just got the renewals here this last week.
Yeah.
So.
Good.
I mean, great, you have a great idea. I feel on, at least definitely on discussion for this, on getting something concrete.
Well, and we had Greg contact all the NCKL schools. I sent a little deal out to Soups. Nobody in the public education arena has any guidelines. It's basically just approved by the board. And so, and maybe we're fine. We just need to get contracts in place for what we have now. And then moving forward, anything over 5,000 is approved on an individual basis. I don't know. Maybe we're overcomplicating.
I think it needs to be something very similar to that.
I mean, I think it protects the people who've paid for the spot too.
100%.
So that way that, you can't say, oh, well, you paid for it last year, but now I want more money, so I'm gonna replace your sign and you thought you were getting 5 years. So that's essentially what this does. It clarifies that.
Text from somebody else coming in saying, I'll give you $5,050.
Well, I was gonna say that
Yeah.
would be the other thing we could consider putting in there is that, yeah, the price may change, but who's ever doing it now in the 3 years has the right of first refusal.
Right, sure.
To renew it before we go look for somebody else. And I think they would appreciate that also. Yeah.
Yeah, could we add that to the,
It's in there.
there?
So we're over a certain.
On larger, like
Larger. donation.
25,000 and above.
And we thought about where that break point is, but if you do first right of refusal on the little things, like 3,000, well, then it doesn't give equal opportunity to other business. You know what I mean? So that was kind of the hard part. On the big ones, 100%, but it was like on those smaller ones. Do you want to really lock it into one person or do you want to have?
If they were first to get in line and do it, and they're willing to pay the new price, in my opinion, we should reward them.
They can always tell us no.
Yeah, yeah. But we should give them a chance to reward them since they jumped in and done it the first time, in my opinion.
And have we addressed what do we do if we have 3 businesses that say $5,000, I'll do it? Okay, so we get in a bidding war or how do you decide which business gets it?
Good question.
It's always been first come, first served.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So we're gonna work on that, finalize that,
I'm hoping October, will have it, give us
Okay.
60 days.
but in the turnaround, we have some donations that we haven't approved to
Right.
move forward.
But we need to do the volleyball. I mean, that was kind of the test
To
thing.
move forward.
And said that we need to approve the volleyball.
Okay.
So. How do we want to do this?
I think you just have to approve those donations that were pulled from consent, if that's what you want to do.
Should we, word that general?
Yeah, yep, approve the donations that were full.
I'll make a motion to approve the donations that was moved from consent to naming rights and advertising.
Second.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Motion carried 7-0. Well, then we go to next meeting. Obviously, we have the closeout. that we have to do.
And budget
And
approval.
budget approval.
Take that in. And that's important.
Would want to put on there an update on this, naming of this. thing. See where we're at. Maybe somebody else will come up with another idea. And like I say, my goal would be something we'd have this set in stone in October. So. Yeah. Anything else on next meeting? Think of? And you can always email me. Send it to me.
Board president buys dinner.
We'll do that. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Do I have an expense account? Is that, okay, and then, future agenda items, this is Brett, the Tiger House contracts on there, we don't have a contract for it yet, so just leave it on there, when one does, and then we'll address it, so. Again, that's another thing, you can email me, Jason, and we'll get it on. So with that, let's take a short break. 5-minute break here, and we'll come back. 10 minutes.
Yeah, they put it in paper. For our new teachers. Yeah, I do that. We don't. Blue print on blue, so you don't know what the teachers at Lakeville are doing. You got orange and blue there, orange on blue, but they put blue, you can't even see it. I noticed out here on the blowed up ones, you could see the blue on blue.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy, but they did that all our new staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
It's still there. No, they don't, I can't even see it, but then in that, oh, that's the city hall. No.
Let more people come in.
How's your project coming out? Into the old part, opened up? Yeah, it's all opened up.
I changed it over just towns.
But I got A's. I think
All this and everything.
Right, pretty much done. Hey guys, I'm gonna spend the weekend ripping up mountain, like underneath the tile flooring, 3/4 inch mortar with expanded metal. And then the worst part is in spots, they overlap the metal. They have a 42, second one, 42 nails after that, and then put 3/4 inch of concrete on top of it.
Gonna have circus in Wakefield September 4th.
Where they get set up.
Down between the last road and the park and the water, where that soccer field is. Big old field there. Yeah. Take my grandson, that'll be fun. We dance. Impressive embodiment, their guy for his 4th birthday. You guys are pretty brave. Sure can't touch you now.
No, but my dad never got me one.
Yeah, my dad, they did have one, but they, count, he went over the handle already. So, his mom's all struggling out. President, he had a helmet on, he don't get it. They don't,
Yeah.
Very first time he rode, he stood up on stage.
Yeah.
President, that's what he does on his bike, so he comes.
Oh, right.
Okay to do that. It was your eyes, they said. It's a 50 cc.
Yeah.
But it's adjustable.
Got the training wheels on it.
No training.
No training wheels.
But,
Can you put them on that one or is it?
you can put them on, they don't have them, but
Or whatever.
they can lock the clutch, we didn't have to do the clutch.
Oh,
So when it gets old enough, they can take a locking on that, they can use the clutch.
use it, but.
Yeah, but they can make it so it's just one, they got, there's a deal on it, you can adjust this, so it goes faster. Until he's able to do the clutch. So he's got an adjustment where they put it on low and then you can go to medium, makes it go a little faster, put it on high. So I was kind of surprised.
Yeah.
Bob McGee, he's a Yamaha rep for Brook.
Oh, yeah.
They go all over the country doing shows and everything. He told Preston, just buy this, because it'll be 10 years, it'll still be worth about 12.
Yeah.
Preston said, you don't want my kid. That's it. But yeah.
Yeah. No, they.
He's not tall enough to, so he stops, he just.
Oh,
You know.
I see that. It's watching. Kids racing that. Yeah. Everybody likes it.
Yeah.
They got great hand crates on both sides, so they.
Yeah. When you get ready to stop, watch out. Yeah.
And then I, they go to talking with Rich. That's a big thing.
All our new, I think we ordered our food, so they can make a comment, something. Well, if we make a copy, you know, what's your rate, because some of these copies are so damn good now, right? Signatures, you see the copy and sometimes it's like.
Everybody makes fun of me and I was like, no, you sign it in blue. And I was like, is that, and that's what you're gonna need, that's the original documents.
Okay.
Well, the mobile notary, some of the instructions, that's what it was on the board. Both of them be signed.
Listed there, so bottom two are both.
Don't ever think your own.
So in order to do that certified.
They're gonna hand you theirs and write.
I thought Littleton was just not employed, but it happened.
But-
Okay.
Yeah, in order to do that coaching or anything like that, and not be ruled in.
Okay.
I'll have you look at that.
What?
Said when it's rain.
What?
Not too small. According to 5 days rain sprinkled on us in Manhattan today. About 11 o'clock to about 1 o'clock. Spit a little bit down there, and then they go out.
It's funny, we went to open house and Craig, Toby Wishman is, who hired up for a teacher this year. We were sitting there, we started talking about air conditioning. And I told him, and he had absolutely no, I said, can we have it all the way through high school without air conditioning? And he was like, what?
Like 8 days, I would say.
I was
Really?
like,
It was
at 7:30 in the morning, got at 1:30, and that's the heat schedule, we did that, and he was like,
Shoot, we got a heat
What
schedule.
is- what is-
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Type on, manual typewriter.
I just laughed. And
I would
I
think-
was able to ask him,
That's like they don't do 2 days, this week, it's not, 2 days. You should look long, because.
high school.
Our high school,
We do the 7:50.
I don't know why, well, it's a coach for all, I think I'd have them out there at 6 in the morning, they have them out there at 6 at night.
Yeah.
So they can't even start their job.
Yeah.
At least they have their teacher, what we have, what they think, but usually there's. Well, because of leap year. Leap year.
All right, back for a break. So, now I move we go into executive session, to discuss non-elected personnel matters pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under KOMA. If the open meeting shall resume at 8:15. The executive session should include the board, superintendent, and council.
Second.
And second, all those in favor? Carries 7-0.
Yeah.
Okay. We should learn the norm. These are my basic notes, and then I packed up the room, so I don't know what, do you normally keep your scopes? Okay. This was a transfer, whatever, no, this meeting. So what I was gonna do. I was gonna, I have a copy of all of my computers and I put those items. So I'm gonna put a copy in there. I was like. She did it and she said, that would be nice. Yeah, I'm not gonna go to two places, so I thought, well, I just. Yeah. Make a copy of each, if it's original and the thing in there. Do you normally do these in two separates? Meetings, or just for the month?
Oh, yes, in two separate meetings.
Work on this, right? Got this number. Oh, wait,
I have a folder for that, but yeah.
I think
But don't lose it.
yes.
Okay.
But you're.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, sometimes they just. I don't know why they're. Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. Okay, so there were three that came up there, I did those, and then after tomorrow. Green, well, sorry, I did bring those three people. And then after school. Okay, I didn't because I was like, if I need this one, I'm not. And then remember you figure out later. That's already like exposure in the app, but on some people are doing it that way. But there's not that many people that are putting it on there. I'm in it all the time. And I think a lot of people get it on it. I had an excellent, there might just be a couple people that we have that didn't input now, that didn't get it. But I don't know. We don't have to actually get it on. And that's what we have to do. Right. So I guess it's in the first half of the year. We have to get it back. What we do is we have to do it. Because they have it, they have to done and added, but where they say.
Instead of seven, right? And so last year, it was that you had it just, it was so much faster. Sure. When you were just. No. Right, that's the way that's. If you're, it's not, it's just, carriers has. So it's not, okay, so we're okay with the year, so as long as it's.
Well, like, we have some people that apply and they're not paying for it. I can't, but I'm not gonna apply, I'm just gonna fall off. Cause I don't want, I know I'm gonna go to it. I can't. Right, yeah, for. It's right here.
I heard that badge at home, so it's good that I
Well,
will.
Yeah, yeah. Another minute. Okay, take 15, we'll resume the meeting here. So first off, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the superintendent to pursue collection of late resignation penalties by all legal means available. Second. And we'll get a second. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Approval of the personnel. Any questions on the personnel reports? No, I moved to approve personnel report, including supplemental updates as presented.
Okay.
A second, all those in favor? Motion carries 7-0.
And we could adjourn the meeting.
Second. Motion and a second, all those in favor? To carry 7-0. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody. See you at the next one. Thank you.